Wow, welcome back to the Cybersecurity Whisper. It's been a few weeks, if not a month. This is for the week of December 15th, 2024. Yeah, lots of travel. I had the opportunity to go to the AWS reInvent conference in Las Vegas, and quite the conference. AWS is doing a lot of cool things. But man, 60,000 people, they had to rent the entire strip and every convention center on the strip. And so, very difficult to get in and out of sessions. But I did make a few, was able to stream a few of them, and did learn a lot of good information. And I know they have one specifically for security during the summer months that moves from location to location called Reinforce. And so perhaps that might be the better option. But anyway, glad to get back. There's lots of news to cover, so I won't bore you with that. It is ironic that during the AWS reInvent conference in Vegas, there also happened to be the world's largest marijuana conference, as well as the National Finals Rodeo. And they were still cleaning up the tracks from the Formula One race that had been there just, I think, the week before Thanksgiving. So, wow, crazy times. But as we dive into a few of the stories from this week that you may have already heard about, but at least 8 U.S. companies have been hit in the telecom attack spree, and this is what we're calling Salt Typhoon. It's compromised at least 8 telecom providers in the U.S. and that we know about. There certainly could be more. And this campaign to intrude telecom companies, it's affiliated with China's government, and it's been underway for at least 1 to 2 years that we've known about, and has affected a few dozen countries thus far. Now, of course, telecom networks are a high priority target, one that's in the bullseye of nation state programs. And, we would think for the uses of espionage, but also potentially, of course, for disruption at a time of crisis or conflict, them just being able to turn off all of our communication systems. And so the government officials certainly believe that there's still access to the networks. They're still in the network, so there's a risk of ongoing compromises to our communication networks. And so until these U.S. communication telecom companies address these security gaps, the Chinese are likely to maintain this access. And so, regulatory compliance, regulations are usually not the answer, but sometimes you have to do it because the companies don't want to do it on their own. But usually if you look at the reason why, it's because they would have to drive up the cost to cover that. And then us as consumers don't want to pay that additional cost. So there is a balance, and I don't fully blame these companies, potentially depending on what the gaps are and how expensive they might be to close, and for the government to have to pass regulations to force them to do it. Now, we've talked about this for some time, and I'm certainly a huge proponent for this, but when password rules change, who actually benefits? And this article is talking about the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST. And so any government organization has to follow NIST guidelines, and a lot of private sector companies will follow them as well, just because it's good guidance. And so the NIST has recently changed their password policy, really saying that you only need to change your password if you know it's been compromised because of the additional factors like multi-factor and such. Nobody likes passwords, or really nobody likes trying to remember passwords. And so if you've got to change it every 60 to 90 days, if research shows that changing it more frequently actually makes it weaker, because you're writing it down, or you're just adding an exclamation point to the end or a number to the end. So if you're at a company and you've got layers of security, you've got multi-factor with number matching, and you're out there doing dark web scans to see if your user passwords have been stolen, change it to once a year, or something like that. Now, talking about the CrowdStrike incident again, because this is going to stay in the news for a while. IT professionals really have been analyzing this and really, saw it as not necessarily a bad thing. It was really just a call to arms for technology teams, because it really triggered investments in people, process, and technologies to beef up enterprise resilience. Again, it was an outage. It wasn't a hack. It wasn't a ransomware, although it kind of seemed like that because you couldn't get to your machines. But it really, it caused millions of us to look at our systems and our processes. And what really, I think, did part of that was, again, this was back in July 19th, because it grounded thousands of commercial flights, it disrupted financial transactions, and cost Fortune 500 companies more than $5 billion so far in estimated direct losses. And the fallout forced many companies to really reassess their capacity to respond and recover from just unexpected outages. And so this was really the silver lining in the days and weeks that followed. Organizations scrutinized their recovery plans and most likely didn't like what they saw. And the reason that it got budget was because a lot of the executives and others were the ones impacted too, maybe in those travel plans being changed. And so 1/3 of organizations have already changed their software updating procedures. And 9 in 10 respondents to this survey said that their org plans to boost investments in overall cyber incident response training related to just IT outage risks. And now here, moving back to the industries sector, EN Global IT Systems was impacted by a ransomware attack, and of course, none of us have heard of EN Global probably, but this attack marks at least the third disruptive cyber attack impacting energy sectors providers based in Texas since August. So again, EN Global is an energy sector vendor. They of course they're dealing with the effects of a cyber attack on its IT systems. And they revealed that a threat actor illegally accessed the company's IT system and encrypted some of its data files. And the person that was giving this comment was their CFO. Of course, it was in a filing. So the Houston-based company, which provides, again, engineering and automation services to the energy sector and U.S. government agency, said it became aware of the intrusion on November 25th. And they restricted access to its IT systems in an effort to contain and remediate the attack. And again, this is the third that we know of, a disruptive cybersecurity incident impacting energy sector providers since August. Halliburton, they disclosed a cyber attack in an SEC filing, and New Park Resources also was hit in October. So certainly, looking at that critical infrastructure is super important. Now, many of us would consider coffee a critical industry, but Starbucks did have an outage through a third party as well. So they use a company called Blue Yonder to do employee scheduling. And this company, and they had to revert to just manual, paper scheduling to make sure workers were on time and paid on time as well. So again, this Blue Yonder had a ransomware attack, and that's used to manage employee schedules and track hours. And so Blue Yonder disclosed that this attack disrupted services. They're based in Arizona, and they provide supply chain management software to thousands of firms across the globe, including major grocers and other retailers in the U.S. and the U.K. And of course, Starbucks was working closely with them to get a resolution and keeping their partners whole, making sure that they get the hours recorded, they get scheduled, and they get paid. It doesn't impact customer service, not mobile orders or in-store operations, as long as they could get there to get employees there to work. Now, here's another interesting one. Now, I don't use these car services like a Zipcar, but it's somewhat similar to Lyft and Uber, except that you can go rent these cars sight unseen. There's no one around. You use the app to open the car door. You use the app to start the car and everything. And so it's I'm not super familiar with this, but they had a total meltdown. They had on Black Friday a Zipcar outage, and it strands customers in random places. Their app and their website was down on Black Friday. Man, many customers got stranded and locked out of the cars they had rented, unable to return or lock them, or otherwise unable to access them or to get through to the tech support for hours. And then when the services came back online, many customers were hit with charges with hundreds of dollars, saying that they were late, in returning and other things. Again, Zipcar is a car share service, allows people to rent cars from specific garages and parking spots for several hours or days at a time. And the entire process is managed through an app. It's required for customers, again, to lock and unlock and start in rental periods. And because the app was down, people who had reservations were unable to access the cars they had reserved. People who had already rented them were unable to return them. And they were locked out of the cars they had already rented and were unable to even end the ride within the app, which is why they had the late charges. And you look at their social media, Zipcar social media, and it talks about people being stranded in random places for hours, stuck on hold, missed flights, had to be rescued because of the outage. And one person said, look, they rented a car, they went to buy a quick drink to the store, and all of a sudden the car's locked, and they've been waiting over 4 hours in the cold, no help. And someone else said, they were stuck waiting for an hour to speak with someone, no help. And all their things were inside the car, even their house keys, and there was no way of getting them out. And one person, did get in contact after hours on hold, told the car will be picked up tomorrow and they'll be refunded. And they had to leave it and take the most expensive and longest Uber of their life, wake up to a $54 late charge fee, as well as an email of their trip as if it was just a normal experience. Somebody else was stranded, unfortunately, for 4 hours, tried to log into the account only to get locked out due to a security measure, and spent 2 hours waiting on the phone. Someone missed their flight, which then caused them to miss a final exam. So they're going to be, think about the long-term impacts of that. They certainly need to work on their backup strategies. Something that's certainly not so positive to talk about. Certainly, we've all heard and seen the United Healthcare CEO that was murdered walking into what was going to be an investor meeting, and quickly after that, United removed a page from its website that listed the rest of its executive leadership team, and several other health insurance companies have done the same thing, hiding the names and the photos of their executives from easy public access. Again, if you went to their About Us page, it just would either be gone or redirect you to their homepage. Many companies are doing this. And again, we have to talk about privacy and physical security. Obviously, there's many other ways you can find out these executives. But, if someone wants to target someone, why make it so easy to find them out? You have to do the cost benefit of, is posting those executive bios going to get you, potentially more revenue from deals and such like that. So it's an interesting business decision, and hopefully not just a knee-jerk reaction on that. Now, talking about the continued evolving of the CISO role, with servant leadership, dual career tracks, and it's important that we always emphasize you've got permission to fail. The CISO role is only 29 years old. The world's first CISO, Steve Katz, he was lived from 1942 to 2023. And he was named to this newly created role by Citicorp back in 1995. Since day one, the role has been perilous and complex. Citicorp didn't create the position because it realized that technology needs to be secured. Instead, around 94, there were rumors the company had been hacked, and no one knew whether it was true or not. And so it turned out that Citicorp systems were indeed compromised, and Russian hackers stole more than $10 million from the bank. And since day one, the security leadership role has been constantly changing. And in this, and so looking at these three areas, servant leadership, dual career tracks, and permission to fail can be super important for you if you are looking at that role. Leave it to Microsoft. They are thinking that we forgot about their new Windows recall feature that they tried to release months ago, and that everyone rightly told them they were crazy for. Well, they're trying to bring it back after months of delays, and they announced it in May. Again, delayed 3 times, and now it's designed, again, this Windows recall, it's designed to take periodic screenshots of active Windows, analyze them using on-device AI, and store them in a SQL-like database. And then users can retrieve those snapshots using natural language queries. And so it's intended really to allow users to employ AI to easily search the snapshots. And so in response to earlier versions about privacy and security concerns, being a natural target for attackers, this prompted Microsoft to delay the rollout, and users now have to first enable BitLocker full disk encryption, activate Secure Boot, and enroll in Windows Hello in order for you to even turn on this Windows recall feature. Again, it's designed to avoid capturing sensitive information such as your passwords or credit card details, and users can also delete those screenshots and exclude any specific apps and websites from the data capture. And the tool can certainly be uninstalled as well. So enterprise devices will ship with recall disabled by default, so the IT admins will have to determine whether or not to enable it and give users access. So let's see. Oh, the geolocation interest. It's very interesting that the U.S. FTC has had to crack down on these geolocation brokers. Again, it goes back to the whole privacy and letting people know where you are, and stalkers. There's a company called Gravy Analytics and Mobile. They were ordered to implement stronger consent measures, and they are, again, 2 data brokers, and the FTC. They said they were obtaining location data to let online advertisers gain real life insight into a device user's pattern of life. And so in a complaint, the FTC said that Gravy Analytics, they boasted of having access to location data indirectly collected daily for more than 1 billion devices. And they have the ability to convert mobile advertising IDs embedded in a smartphone into a record of a user's bed down location, work location, and visits to government buildings. And then again, these digital advertisers, Gravy Analytics could categorize these customers' behavior traits as early risers, restaurant visitor during COVID quarantine, and etc. based on location data. They also accused this Georgia company, Mobile, of selling smartphone location data obtained by participating in real-time bidding for online advertising. And so these advertising exchanges, they prohibit ad buyers from retaining this location information transmitted whether an open slot for consumer eyeballs opens up, but mobile wallet nonetheless held onto the data. And so this surveillance by data broker, it just undermines our civil liberties and puts it could put government and service members, union workers, religious minorities, and others at risk. And this is the complaint that was filed by the FTC. And so this, they have supplied location data to U.S. law enforcement agencies such as Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Customs and Border Protection, the FBI. And the company gathered the data through a complex network involving mediators such as advertising firms, data resellers, and some apps that are installed on your phones. And it was, reportedly used by agencies such as ICE to track and identify immigrants, and gives the Border Patrol the ability to monitor activity in remote areas, including the U.S.-Mexico border. Here's one that could be sad for some of us. A vodka maker, they've gone bankrupt after a cyber attack. So vodka maker Stoli Group, their U.S. subsidiary Stoli USA and Kentucky Owl filed for bankruptcy late in November 27th, citing an August ransomware attack and ongoing disputes with the Russian government as causes for its voluntary petition for protection against creditors. They had this declaration that's saying that the August ransomware attack knocked out the company's enterprise planning system and forced its accounting system into manual entry mode, and it won't be fixed until the first few months of 2025. So, wow. It also prevented the company from providing financial reports to lenders, leading to the claims of default of $78 million in debt. And Russian authorities confiscated 2 distilleries valued at $100 million after the incident. So they've also had just major, government issued post-Soviet Russian government. They privatized during the 90s, and the Russian court in July declared Stoli founder Yuri Shefler and the two firms' main holding companies to be extremists for their support of Ukraine. And so this is why they confiscated these distilleries valued at $100 million. So lots going on there. That's it for this week as we catch up. And if we've got holidays coming up, so no telling what'll happen. But if we don't see you, we hope that everyone has a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thanks. Take care.